You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. In the report we're talking about, of course, the Racial Equity Anchor Collaborative, a coalition of national racial civil rights organizations, released this report called We Vote, We Count. This, Judith, is one of those issues, how Republicans are specifically trying to disenfranchise people of color. We saw the impact in Louisiana. 140,000 formerly incarcerated got their right to vote. John Bel Edwards wins by 40,000 votes in Louisiana. The guy the Democrat who just won in Kentucky says he's going to restore the voting rights to formerly incarcerated in Kentucky. That's going to have an impact as well. What these Republicans are seeing, and this is where they're stuck, because they're out here championing. Van Jones went to CPAC saying, you know, Republicans, y'all leading the effort now on criminal justice reform. But here's the problem here. Okay, they want to, criminal justice reform, but don't want to deal with this other part.
That's right. Because this is about power.
There you go.
About power. Now, we can reduce the population in prison because it's going to save us money. But we're not too good on that, giving you back your right to vote.
There you go.
Because it's a political equation for them. And their political equation is, if we do that, we lose.
Even though they got no problem counting prisoners as a part of congressional gerrymandering, as well as the census. So it's like, we're going to use these prisoners to get money for our state, but y'all ain't get that vote when you get out.
The 200% compromise.
You know, it's like
not 3/5. You took one body from one place, took another place, denied her the right to vote, which meant you made two people against that person.
Exactly.
It's 200%, not 3/5.
It really does hark back to the 3/5 of a person.
Yeah.
And it harks back to the way that black people have been basically marginalized in terms of elections. The report is a very good report because you have a list of some of the things that people have done to exclude people from the right to vote. And this goes back to Jim Crow. It goes back to grandfather clauses. It goes back to, my great aunt, she died when she was 102. Mississippi, Moss Point, Mississippi. One time, when she was like in her 40s, she wanted to vote. They made her read some Latin. And she didn't know how to read Latin. So she didn't get to vote.
Neither did they.
Right. They sure did. You're right.
But she used to tell us about that, about all the little tricks. So they started, the sisters who were going.
Or poll tax, which is what this is.
Right.
They started going and studying.
Yeah.
So they
Well, that's Septima Clark. That's Dorothy Cotton.
Right.
As if you can beat these people because as if there's a common set of rules. That's why I thought this report was so brilliant, because you all enumerate every strategy, and then you went out and traveled around the country.
New stuff, right? We're not counting bubbles any longer, right? We're not we're not doing the Constitution. That's the Jim Crow stuff has just changed.
In fact, go to my iPad. This is from the site WeVoteWeCount.org. To that point, Judith, stories of voter suppression. I was purged from the rolls. First-time voter was denied. He didn't realize. They said, well, you need a voter registration card and an ID. There's voter suppression in Cleveland. Ticketed for putting nonpartisan electoral information on cars. Issues with the address. And look, every time Mellick is on here, he wants to deny this. Raynard, that fool, wants to deny this. But any Republican with a brain like Eugene, I'm going to bring you in right here, understands this. The Republican Party, this is, by design, the strategy of the Republican Party. I don't want to hear that crap that no official vote was taken by the RNC. It is the Republican Party, national and state. It is their strategy to absolutely find legal ways to prevent folks from voting, specifically targeting black people, Latino people, old people, and young people.
Yeah, look, up until the last election cycle, there was an actual literal consent decree in place that prevented the RNC from, doing their typical ways, started to find new creative legal ways to engage in voter suppression. When you couple that with the lack of resources that historically the RNC and many state parties would put towards voter engagement, with minority communities, this is what you get. But it's something that's dirty, something that's disgusting. I don't think anyone should lose the right to vote, incarcerated or not. And I don't think purges should ever take place. If I decide not to vote in a couple of elections because I hate my choices, that's my right. You shouldn't go in and try to remove me from the voter rolls, and only for me to find out when I decide to vote in a particular election. But it's a playbook that's been used time and time again. Now the only issue is that because of the heightened environment that we're in, and the activity around getting folk engaged and getting folk registered to vote, it's becoming harder and harder for conservatives and Republicans to engage in voter suppression and denying people the right to vote. So what happens is this: Republicans understand as long as they don't engage, when young people come out and people of color come out, they lose. So they're terrified in Georgia right now. They're terrified in Arizona. They're terrified in Texas. They're terrified to see what Amanda Everest can do if she gets a nomination. And so, that's what's going on.
Judith, to the point that Eugene made about that consent decree, when Donna Brazile was chair of the Democratic National Committee.
I sued under that consent decree, sued the RNC under that consent decree.
And what happened there was she went to Reince Priebus, who was then chair of the RNC, and said, let's extend this. They would not even answer. So that decree expired after.
Well, there's a different story. Actually both parties, the DNC and the RNC, actually agreed to get rid of that consent decree. So we started using that consent decree. It's an agreement because the RNC basically had engaged in voter suppression in New Jersey back in the 80s. We actually sued the RNC in 2011 under that same agreement because they were doing the same thing in Ohio. This was in Ohio. Remember the year that we had the long lines? The next election, we went back and sued them. And the DNC and RNC decided they were going to shut down that way of going at the RNC. They agreed upon it so that no outside parties like us could get involved in their mess. Wow. Okay, so first of all, so the first step they took, this was 2014. The first step they did was that they said to the court, no outside groups can intervene in this case. So that's number one. Hold up. We ain't gonna speed past that. Let's talk about the DNC.
No. So what you're saying is, and I told y'all this, and that's tape. I told y'all, under President Obama, he didn't give a damn about the Democratic National Committee.
Hell no.
I told y'all that. Y'all can call it hate, but it's a fact. So what you're saying is, under President Barack Obama, the person who is president, who is over the party, the Democratic National Committee partnered with the Republican National Committee to keep third-party groups from being able to sue either party, because what people don't realize is that the courts have declared that these parties are private.
Right. Right.
So these two parties, in 2014.
We were an outside party.
In 2014. This happened in 2014.
Right. We were an outside party, and we had done this case before Obama was elected. And then they came back and said, no, we're not allowing any other outside parties into this case. Agreed in front of the court. Then they came back and they agreed with the judge, who now has passed away, to actually do away with the consent decree. So now, this was our only way of going at the RNC in a fast way around voter suppression, right? And I'll tell you, I sat through depositions in our case, and the DNC folks were clear, they were not going to ask questions. So this was before Obama was elected. They were not going to ask questions about voter suppression. They were just there to hear the questions that we asked. So understand that we may not have, and this is why outside groups like Advancement Project and others are really important.
Right.
Because we're not dealing with the politics of stuff.
That's right.
What we're dealing with
Y'all
is
are nonpartisan.
Black folks, Latino folks, Asian folks, Native American folks, vote. Can we vote?
Please.
Who wins is up to the candidates to make the case to be the one to win. So part of what we did with We Vote, We Count was to make sure that the stories of impacted voters are collected and that people understand that there are new tools for voter suppression, that it's the cutting of polling places, getting rid of polling places like Mount Zion Baptist Church is no longer a polling place all of a sudden. It's also the cutbacks to early voting because black people have started using early voting as a tool, right? We got
in North Carolina, it was documented.
Right.
Republicans
and
in North Carolina specifically said,
right.
when are black people voting?
Right.
And they discovered that 70% of African Americans were voting during early election, and most of them were voting during the first week. So that's why they whacked the first week.
They go back.
They reduced it to one polling location in a whole county for the first 2 or 3 weeks, and then said, we'll add a few more.
That's right.
That was, and they got busted because they were so dumb, the dumbasses put it in the email.
Right.
And the federal court, and when they got sued, the federal court.
Right.
But that's how they
Native
get.
American people, right?
Yeah.
What did they do to Native American people? They had.
Was it in Wyoming?
South Dakota.
South Dakota.
Where South Dakota said,
one of them
because the Democrat had been elected to Congress, South Dakota, they decided that you had to have a street address. Well, people that live on Standing Rock Res do not have street addresses. So they wouldn't be able to vote.
So they had to scramble the last second.
They don't have
to get them some kind of information that
you
shows
talked about on this show. Remember, they have some kind of they had a machine. They were printing IDs.
Right, IDs, right.
Like,
so these are the kinds of voter suppression tactics that we need to be worried about. And tomorrow, I'm sure you know that that the bill, the Voting Rights Advancement Act, will go to the floor in the House. H.R. 4 is going to be on the floor for a vote. We expect that it will pass. Congresswoman Marcia Fudge, I will say, has been incredible around this issue. She had field hearings to bring out issues around voter suppression. We had people's hearings in several states that were just regular voters talking about their problems. And it's all culminating in this vote tomorrow. And this is going to be a vote to fix what the Supreme Court did to the Voting Rights Act back in 2013.
Likely to get passed by the House, and watch Mitch McConnell don't even bring it up in the Senate.
Right.
But this is also why Eugene, Greg, and Julian, why when I listen to these people out here, and let me be as explicit as possible, when I hear these dumb punk asses who talk about not voting, again, when did most of this crap really take off? It was after the Supreme Court decision of Shelby County versus Holder. Before that, it was in 2010.
Right.
When folks did not vote in 2010 midterms like they did in 2008 to elect Obama. What happened was, I was sitting on the set of CNN. That night, state legislatures flipped. Republicans took control of a number of gubernatorial mansions. And it was at that point, because they saw black and Latino and young and old turnout in 2008. North Carolina, if you read Reverend Barber's book, The Third Reconstruction, North Carolina was at the bottom of voter turnout prior to 2008. They fought like hell to get people to vote, change the laws. Vaulted to the top percentile of voter turnout. Republicans in North Carolina said, oh, hell no, we got to change this to depress the vote. After Shelby v. Holder in 2013, your report says Alabama, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, North Dakota, Ohio, South Dakota, Texas immediately began to launch voter suppression in all of these different ways. And the report says witnesses attested to, go to my iPad, witnesses attested to, among other things, having to wait in long lines to cast a ballot, being denied bilingual ballot language assistance, having to restore the registration status after an illegal voter purge, and having to stand up against last-minute changes to polling locations and hours of operation. Additionally, voters have had to adjust to increasingly scarce polling places with ever-changing locations, which presents a huge burden for those without easy access to transportation and with inflexible work schedules.
You know, Roland, you mentioned 2010, the Republicans taking over state houses. That was a pivotal election because it was also a census election. Now we're going to have that again in 2020.
Right.
So as you say, all these people who say they don't want to vote, well, I don't know what's wrong with them. I truly don't know what's wrong with them. As you said, elections have consequences.
Somebody gonna win.
Yes.
Whether you vote or not,
Somebody's
gonna win. You might want to be saying, okay, out of all the stuff out there, if you can't figure out any stuff, you might want to say which one of the two candidates is more likely to protect my right to vote.
Right. And to Dr. Malveau's point is that this election is huge because, well, not just because of who's in the White House, but because it has consequences on redistricting.
Yes.
Redistricting, it will happen. First of all, census is going to happen, then redistricting. And so state legislatures will have people in them who are going to decide how power gets split in this country. That's what redistricting is. It's a pie. We have a power pie, and we figure out how to split it up. But it has implications for decades.
That's right.
If they get to draw the lines and get to have the power, they will continue to have that power for a long time.
And Judith, we have to add,
That's right.
because Trump is in there and they control the Senate, the federal judges that they are appointing are going to affirm those decisions.
Well,
So when y'all are trying,
their Department of Justice,
when y'all are trying to sue, you're gonna have to go to a federal judge, and if they've been appointed by Trump, they're gonna
unqualified.
They're gonna sit there and say, no. And so that's why voting impacts that.
That's right.
Because whoever wins the White House, whoever controls the Senate, controls the federal bench.
That's right.
Final comment, Greg, Julian, before I got to go to my next guest.
This open question. I mean, every election we've talked about, I don't ever say that they won an election. They've stolen them. Remember 2004 with Kerry? There was a black attorney, Secretary of State in Ohio, Ken Blackwell. A real piece of work.
Yes.
Now, they stole the federal election of 2016. Wisconsin, Milwaukee, Detroit, Michigan. They got it close enough to steal through voter suppression. Stacey Abrams should be the governor of and today, Brian Kemp, who just appointed another racist to fill the seat that just got vacated in the Senate by retirement, they suppressed the vote. And DeSantis in Florida is not the legitimate governor of Florida. They suppressed the vote, and they didn't even count all the votes. Everything you've written in this report led to 2 governors directly to the last legislation and the President of the United States. These are stolen elections. Voter suppression, and you've had Greg Palast on here many times, but this report, we really have to focus on it. This is a war, and we're not prepared to fight.
That's right.
Julian, go ahead.
Stolen elections are not new.
No.
Elections have been stolen I don't know how long. If you look at 1898, go back in the late 19th century, and black people got the right to vote and were voting. Not only did they suppress the election by changing laws, in Wilmington, North Carolina, they basically killed people.
They did.
The black people and white progressives were elected. White boys went into a meeting with guns and said, y'all got to resign. Took all the black people who were prominent, put them on a train, one-way ticket, said, y'all up out of here.
And killed a bunch of others. 1898.
Yeah.
It was a racial pogrom.
And
That's exactly right.
One report says they only killed 60 people. But there's another story that says the Wilmington River ran blood.
We have taken a city to book by my former president of Tennessee State, H. Leon Prather. That's right.
Judith?
Yeah, so really want people to read this report. We Vote, We Count. You can find it on advancementproject.org website.
Or WeVoteWeCount.org.
Yes,
Go ahead.
or WeVoteWeCount.org, because this is our fight. This is our fight of 2020 and beyond, and we really need folks to understand the mechanisms that they're using, because it seems like little things, but those little things have serious consequences.
Judith Brown Dianis,
Thank you.
Thanks a bunch. All right, folks, back to our Road Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment. Fam, it's the holiday season. This is when you think about spending time with your family and friends. This is also when you count your blessings and support those less fortunate. This year, become a holiday hero and change someone's life forever. Right now, hundreds of thousands of Americans are sitting in jail without being convicted of a crime. Why? Because they can't pay their bail. Think about it. If you are arrested for any minor offense and you go to jail, if you don't have the money, you got to stay there until a court date is scheduled. That could be weeks, that could be days, weeks, or even months. Some black folks have were there for years. Simply put, America's bail system is broken for people of color. Freedom should be free, folks. That's why the Ebony Foundation is partnered with the Bail Project and is sponsoring the Home by the Holiday campaign. The Bail Project has helped bail out thousands of people over the years, and with your help, they plan to bail out 1,000 people by New Year's Day. What they want you to do is make a donation anywhere from $25, $50 to $50 or more to do so. Now, of course, people of color represents anywhere from 50 to 90% of the jail population across the country. Now, check this out. Without bail, nearly 90% of those charged with misdemeanors plead guilty because they're trying to get out. However, when bail is paid, less than 2% receive a jail sentence. Sometimes justice just need us. If you want to donate, folks, and help the Ebony Foundation, go to homebytheholiday.com. That's homebytheholiday.com. Now back to your Roland Martin Unfiltered video.